Hello and welcome to the Imagine Crafts YouTube channel. My name is Lynn, or LV Handcrafted, here on YouTube, and today I am going to do a technique that I don't do as often as I should because I just always forget about it, but I just got this gorgeous background stamp, just shy of the full USA2 card front. So that's the size of the panel I'm stamping on right now, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And what I'm going to do is an emboss resist technique. So I have my stamp here and I am inking it up very liberally, very generously with the VeraMark clear embossing ink. It's a sticky ink that will, you're not going to really be able to see where you're stamping unless you actually tilt it, and that wetness of the ink will sort of catch the light. And that's what I'm doing when I tilt it up so that I can actually try to see if I've got good coverage. And that's one of the things that probably is the hardest part about this process. Everything else is going to be super, super simple. So I like to be very generous, ink it up as many times as I think it will need. And you have a couple of moments. You don't have to super rush to get your embossing powder onto this card, but I have poured out, again, very generously, some clear emboss powder from Imagine Crafts, and you could use white as well, but we're already embossing onto white cardstock. So what happens if you've never embossed before is that this powder is actually comprised of plastics, essentially, and when you apply heat to it, it will melt and create a bit of an enamel finish. So I've got my heat gun. I do like to get my heat gun nice and hot before I take it to the paper, and then it should make quick work of melting that powder. And once that powder is melted, it's going to essentially preserve the whiteness of the cardstock underneath, because you've now created kind of a seal of sorts to protect that cardstock. So when we ink over it, and today I'm using VersaColor inks, they are a nice pigment ink, so they blend beautifully. And as well, because pigment inks are, they don't actually soak into your papers, they actually sit on top, and that's why they are so opaque, and that's why you can move them around and why you can blend with them so easily, because they don't stick and absorb into your paper in the same way a dye ink would. And once a dye ink soaks into your paper, you can't really move it around. It's already kind of part of the paper fibers. So with this technique, as you can see right now, it kind of just looks like, oh, well, all I've done is just made a bit of an inky panel. Why did I do that clear heat embossing initially? Well, you'll see in a moment what happens. Right now, I'm just trying to deepen my colors, get the blend of colors looking the way that I want. I've got 3 different types of blue inks that are varying shades. But check this out. Once I buff off just with a paper towel, you can see that I was able to wipe off the ink that was on top of that clear embossed image. And now you can see the detail of the background stamp come through, but come through in white. So instead of stamping a color onto your white cardstock, we stamped an embossed clear powder, and now we can kind of fill in the space between that design with our ink blended background. And then I like to just wipe it off periodically just so that I can see how things are developing and how the final panel will look. So just a quick sort of just take any soft paper towel. I use a shop cloth, or you can use a microfiber cloth, anything that's nice and soft, and just wipe it, and you'll see your design that's been clear embossed has resisted the ink. So it hasn't taken on the color of the ink. And that's why this process or technique is called an emboss resist technique, if you're unfamiliar with the terminology. And just to add some extra dimension, a little extra detail, I smushed on some of that VersaColor Neptune ink, gave it a nice generous spritz of water, and then using a small paintbrush, I'm just tapping flecks of little dots, and I'm doing the same with white. Now here I'm using a white acrylic paint, so you can use whatever you have, and just tapping it onto the handle of another brush is one way of kind of just getting those flicks, getting those little dots. And it just helps to add a little bit of interest. The background is already super dynamic. It's got a lot of movement with the swirls to sort of suggest like wind and movement. So really love that. And I've trimmed this off essentially just to get the image down to the embossed design. So that's all I'm doing here is just trimming away the edges. And I really like I don't often do this, but I need to do it more. I kind of like that wider white border of the card base coming through. So I thought that was actually kind of different. I mean, that's just what happens to be once you cut this panel down to size. Originally, I thought I might actually matte it with a piece of solid color cardstock, but ultimately, when I did a little bit of a dry run, I really love the look of it just the way that it is with that wider white border. In advance, I did already cut up this this image, which I thought was really fitting. In fact, the stamp set even has little swirls to make it seem like she's blowing out air, or maybe it's like really cold and she's just breathing, but her breath is actually creating kind of that condensation midair. And I thought that was really cool. I thought about using that or adding it to the stamped image, but I figure since the background already has those windy swirls, it doesn't really need it. So so I decided to leave that off. But the sentiment is really sweet. It says, blowing you a kiss and a wish for all good things. And so I thought that was really lovely. It kind of picks up on the wind and blowing. So I thought thematically it really works. And I colored up the image so that it matches as much as I could in the alcohol markers that I have, which I did use Ohuhu alcohol markers. So you don't really need anything super expensive to color with. Choose whatever coloring medium you prefer, but I thought it would be nice to kind of do a tone-on-tone coloring where she, instead of being a different color to kind of stand out from the background, I went with colors fairly similar to my background, and I thought that kind of makes her, they're more saturated on her because alcohol markers are great for that intense color. So I thought that would work really well. And my final touch will be just a few enamel dots in white. Again, I don't want to introduce too many different colors. I want to keep everything really monochromatic in a sense, just different shades of blue and white. So that is my card today. I hope if you've never tried Emboss Resist that you'll give it a shot because it's a lot of fun and it can give you nice different results. Of course, the other way that you could achieve a similar look is by doing up your inky panel first, and if you do have a white pigment ink pad, you could always stamp your design in white. But this is really fun because when you emboss, you do get a little bit of a raised texture of that enamel finish, and you do get that shine too. So I really love it for those reasons. Thanks so much, and until next time, happy crafting and have a fabulous day. Bye!